I really keep on trying to emphasize that when the Conservative Party is in a panic, when it is terrified of its own shadow, when it's running around at the moment as it is, uh, crying that the sky is literally about to fall, which, to be fair, from a Conservative point of view, given that you look at the polls and everything that's going on, probably, might be a very true apt metaphor for here. But when the Conservative Party is in such a state like this, they do not make good decisions at all. They just do not think and just jump at the first thing they think that can maybe have a good impact, maybe turn this around. After Liz Truss, they installed Rishi Sunak, thinking that somehow he could turn all this around. Well, here we are almost a year later, and he is running probably one of the most disastrous political re-election campaigns, definitely in UK history. I think that's certainly true in UK history. World history, I don't know. Maybe there are campaigns out there that are worse than this, but certainly I think if you were going to rank them worldwide, maybe this would certainly rank up there. Certainly maybe top 10. I don't know. Let me know down below if you think there is a worse political campaign out there that was worse than the one we are seeing right now. But of course, we are seeing the panic and the desperation, and even some talks or the rumors going around that, we should maybe try and talk with Farage. Maybe we can try and save ourselves with Farage, with even Rees-Mogg saying we need to reunite the Tory family and bring Farage back into the fold. Well, guess what? The panic is truly setting in, because guess who else is on the list of hopeful Tory comebacks? Yes, you guessed it. Boris Johnson, apparently, again, big air quotes, is preparing to run again. And all this is according to Conservative Home, but bear in mind, it is Conservative Home, so, hey, maybe we should take this with a pinch of salt, but this is a website which we've said before has deep ties to the non-parliamentary Conservative Party, so who knows at this point? But bear in mind, that ship has now sailed. That ship has now sailed. He certainly cannot join in this general election, but maybe down the road he tries and rehabilitates his character, and maybe tries and runs again in the future. Maybe even tries and gets in a by-election or something like that. Who knows? Who knows what his plans might be? But Conservative Home certainly seems to think that Johnson really is preparing to run again. So before we do get into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So as always, until I'm saying the ending before the beginning. So like I say, thank you very much everyone who does help and support the channel. Even if you do just click the like and share button, it all helps. So let's crack on into this. So this is from Conservative Home with Johnson is preparing to run again. Let's find out just how deep the panic must be behind the scenes for this to happen. Anyway, friends say Boris Johnson has not given up thoughts of a comeback. If, as the opinion polls do suggest, Rishi Sunak leads the Conservatives to a shattering defeat, its magnitude increased by Nigel Farage's success as the leader of Reform UK in attracting Tory voters. Johnson will then step forward as the one person who can then save the party from the opportunistic takeover bid of which Farage will then launch. So I do think that will happen. I do think if Farage does win and wins his seat in Clacton, I think potentially, if you were looking at seats where Farage has a chance to win, it's potentially the only one he might win. Hopefully not, but hey, you never know, unfortunately. But if he does get in, Farage will absolutely launch a campaign to take over the Tory party. And of course, who will, of course, many Tories hopefully pin their hopes on to try and save them? Well, of course, it will be Boris Johnson. And remember, the guy who's writing this, Andrew Grimson, is the biographer of Boris Johnson. So, he is probably the most pro Boris Johnson person you will see on this website. So, like I say, take all this with a very small pinch of salt. But back to this. So, as Johnson biographer, I have to say that it would not be out of character for him not to do this. Something of this sort happened in 2019 when Farage, at the head of another shell company, the Brexit Party, triumphed in the European elections and then predicted the fall of Theresa May. Johnson stepped forward as the one man who could save the Conservative Party. He then beat off stiff competition in order of elimination: Rory Stewart, Sajid Javid, Michael Gove, Jeremy Hunt. In November of 2019, he then forced Farage to stand down the Brexit Party candidates in the 317 seats already held by the Conservatives, and in December, he led the party to the greatest general election victory since 1987. Bear in mind, Johnson did not. That's a bit of rewriting of history there. Johnson did not force Farage to stand down these Brexit Party candidates. Farage did this himself, realizing he did not want to split the right-wing vote and maybe risk, a more pro-Remain parliament. Hence why he stood down not to split the vote. This is why he is standing this time to split the right-wing vote, because he knows it will damage the Tories. In some places, you are looking at them taking away between 15 to 20% of the vote. That is quite significant. So, he did this, of course, as an insurgent, a candidate for whom people could vote in order to now express their discontent with the state of things, in particular, of course, with May's failure to get Brexit done. One of the difficulties experienced by Sunak in this election is that he has no affinity with the discontented voters, nor did May. Well, it's not that they didn't have any affinity for the discontent voters. They just don't have any affinity for any voters, of course. Maybot did not perform particularly well on the campaign trail. There was, of course, the infamous slip up. It meant to be the Brexit election, but turned out to be the pensioners' OAP heating allowance election, which certainly threw May for a loop. This vote doesn't really seem to be, at the moment, crystallizing around any big sort of campaign issue at the moment, other than the fact that Sunak just keeps on doing gaff after gaff after gaff. And if you thought the Sky News, I'm not the Sky News, but the him not having Sky News as a child was bad this week, wait until whatever gaff gets unleashed this week, because we are just having a massive portfolio of just gaff after gaff after gaff. He just can't sit still long enough to appear normal. He just does thing after another thing that just gets worse and worse and worse, and you generally can't believe it. And honestly, I think there is a lot of stuff to the rumors that he is just going rogue on this campaign, and I think that's partly why. But hey, like I say, we'll find out when the dust clears, when all this is over, when you get the insiders coming out who are working on this behind the scenes. That's when we'll get the full truth of just what was going on behind the campaign. And I think, oh boy, it'll be bad. But anyway, back to this. Nor does, of course, indeed Keir Starmer. Like Sunak, he does strive to try and connect with the wider public by emphasizing his ordinariness of his background. As with Sunak, this does not work. He is plainly ascended for an ability for hard work and good fortune from the ranks of respectable working or even middle class into the ranks of the respectable ruling class. Respectably is quite a variable quality. I think you used the word respectable a bit too much there, but there you go. We shall perhaps look back on this period and, of course, think about how fortunate we were to have such respectable leaders who could be counted upon to obey the rules and strive to do the right thing. Well, hey, remember, Sunak also received a COVID fine as well. That surprisingly hasn't come up too much in the campaign, but it has from time to time. Maybe it'll come up again in the couple of weeks as well. But respectability, he continues with, also does create a barrier. It is hard for voters to try and find a life struggle they know that they've failed in various ways, and yet yearn to try and register a protest to feel satisfied by voting for either Sunak or Starmer. At the start of this election, I went to Conhome. I went for Conhome over to Hartlepool, where in this by-election of May of 2021, the Conservatives under Johnson won an astonishing victory, taking the seat off Labour by its biggest sweep in an incumbent party since the war, as the woman in the ward, Jackson Pub, explained. Bear in mind, that was after the 2019, pretty much general election at that point. Although I don't think it was in May, because Hartlepool was the I think he's got the date wrong, because I do not think there was an election in May of 2021. I almost seem to remember it being almost immediately happening in the aftermath of 2019. But I might be getting the dates wrong myself, but who knows? Again, that does seem a long, long time ago. But anyway, someone will tell me, I'm sure, down below. But anyway. So this person in the pub said, when it was Boris, we changed over to the Conservatives, and now we're back to Labour. I worry about America having a duopoly candidates, but I'm not sure we're doing much better. I think if Boris was still in, I'd vote for Boris. Obviously, he was a bit dopey, but he was our dopey. There you go. So, and in just over 3 years ago, voters in Hartlepool expressed their rebelliousness by voting Conservative, and they recognised in Johnson a kindred spirit. He made people from a Labour background feel good about voting Conservatives, a gift not possessed by any of his successors as Tory leader. 2 days ago, Simon Clarke, Paul Bristow, Nick Fletcher, Tom Hurt, Jane Stevenson, and Brendan Clark-Smith all published on X endorsements videoed for them with his usual gusto by Johnson. Like I say, I still can't believe there are people still trying to get endorsements from Boris Johnson. But there you go. Anyway, those MPs are, of course, not fashionable, and their seats are scattered across provincial England. Middlesbrough South, Peterborough, Doncaster East, Ipswich, Wolverhampton North East, and even Bassetlaw. Johnson was trying to remind us of the record of trying to reach voters in these neglected towns who have felt that they have been taken for granted, both by main parties for generations. And again, before we get to that, bear in mind Johnson's actual record for actually doing something about these neglected towns in itself is incredibly bad. Like I say, why aren't the Conservatives talking about levelling up? If levelling up was such a success, why aren't they talking about it? But we've already done a video about that just on Monday as well. So go watch that if you want to find out more about that. So his video to Peterborough began. Hi folks, Boris Johnson here. Just saying what a wonderful local MP Paul Bristow has been for Peterborough. I think I launched my leadership campaign with Paul years ago, and I've seen up close what a great job he's done for his constituency. In Middlesbrough, for Clarke, he also said this. Such a critical part in the whole levelling up agenda in Teesside. The Freeport, bringing back the steelworks to the area, helping to save the airport. It's vital that we keep Simon Clarke here to stop Ben Houchen being simply surrounded by Labour MPs. And oh boy, that is also going to be Ben Houchen's worst nightmare as well. Ooh. Not only that, but a Labour government who's going to say, hey, time to send the National Audit Office in. Let's have a look at those books, shall we? Anyway, Simon has obviously been very heroic in trying to help to get me elected. He got us all elected in 2019 in one of the biggest majorities as part of a country's history seen in a very long time. And of course, he's not mentioning the lies that were, of course, told in 2019. The Brexit oven-ready deal that was going to be absolutely fantastic, and we would never need anything better than this. Leveling up itself, complete absolute lie. It's never actually materialized anything substance, to people. Even the Freeport that was delivered, again, very incredible, questionable economic benefits to that region. Even if you do get all these companies there at the Freeport, very, very questionable economic benefits to that area. So back to this. So in the leadership race of 2019, Johnson's many critics were unable to find and unite around to stop a Johnson candidate with the necessary abilities as the campaigner to try and defeat him and to hold out the prospect of defeating Farage. They assumed wrongly that his leadership campaign would be a mess. It turned out to be the most prepared, for he had learned from his debacle of his leadership bid in 2016 that such a contest of chaos will not do. And then what did he actually go and do? You're forgetting when Johnson was actually in power. You're just bringing up all these stuff. Oh my God, look at all this time and all this stuff. Just ignore the rest of the stuff. Just ignore the rest of this Boris Johnson stuff that happened. Just look at the good stuff, right? Just remember the good stuff about Boris. Ignore all the bad stuff. Anyway, but the more vehemently his critics denounced Johnson for being morally disreputable, the more people who had felt the scorn of the virtuous decided that he was their man. And guess what? Those critics were right. Those critics were right. Anyway, 5 years later, it is not the impossible, but a very same dynamic that will set in. Disassociation of Johnson, the mistaken assumption that he has made no preparations, the accompanied by the inability to unite around a candidate who can beat him, and then rout the preposterous Farage. Again, Johnson did not rout Farage. Farage stood down those candidates himself. But anyway, we'll see. If Starmer, of course, does become Prime Minister, it is possible that he will grow into the job and find the very same tone of voice needed to do well. But as Charles Moore noted of Starmer in The Spectator after the leaders' debate, he said this: his persistent fault is the moralism. His favorite word about his opponent was, quote, shocking. This prissy maiden I'm not even going to bother with that because I feel that's a bit ableist. But there you go. Anyway, Johnson offers, of course, a relief of this. Again, I think being a bit ableist there again. Again, I don't want to repeat that. But he says he stands in line of the Tory Democrats who have been able to, at least critical moments of the frame, try to appeal with shocks about this to the wider public. No wonder he's trying to think of standing again. And bear in mind, once again, we go to the comments and not a single comment. The first comment, Johnson coming back. No, no, no. Reinstating Johnson. Outlandish suggestions just like this will not fly. Missed out one crucial detail. Johnson is and always has been a pathological liar. Great campaigning is confused in this article with outright in-your-face lying. To suggest Johnson can revive and save the party is truly circling the drain, but the public wised up a long time ago, while the party is in the midst of a very long, potentially lethal fever. Again, someone himself here, the third paragraph. He forced Farage to stand down Brexit candidates. Really, neither an explanation nor justification of this statement because it is likely fabricated. This typifies what is so much wrong with the current Conservative and Unionist Party in recent years, self-deluded and out of touch. Incidentally, the latter also eventually affecting Johnson's judgment. And then they go on to say, more than our time voting change reform for PR. There you go. Someone else, first me, let me correct the author. Nobody, not even Boris, forced Nigel to stand down all those 319 candidates in 2019. Farage did this voluntarily, giving Boris his 80-seat majority. Those whom the gods seek to destroy, sanity and the sense to allow us the hope. However hard it may be for conservative leaders to take back control of the party in tandem with reform. The fellow travelers, even those elected, will simply have to go. Their best place might be with even Sir Ed. God, that would be so weird. That would be so weird if that happened. Imagine that. That let's say that happened this oh actually no screw it we'll make another video about this because that I think that's the topic itself. We'll be here for another 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes discussing that, but anyway, back to this. So yeah, um honestly, I think that entire article reeks of desperation, but this is just where they are. This is just where the current Conservative Party is. They are so desperate that you have a guy trying to spin once again the virtues of Boris Johnson, that he is the only man who can save the Tory party. I keep on telling you, they are desperate, they are panicking, and oh boy, after this general election, it is all going to come to a head. And oh boy, they are going to be arguing for decades. Well, a decade, if not more, if we're really lucky. And of course, that offers us huge opportunity to do so many more things. But until then, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do click on the like and share button on your way out. And of course, links down below to help support the channel if you want to support it that way. And of course, as always, I'll see you all next time.